Dear students, now we are going to discuss energetics of a C3 cycle. Energetics means what about the number of ATP and NADPH plus molecules consumed, and what about the number of glucose molecules produced. So, for example, this is a C3 cycle. During which this is a cyclic pathway. So here I'm taking CO2 molecules. So how many CO2 molecules? 6 CO2 molecules. So to reduce 6 CO2 molecules, what about the number of or quantity of reducing power required? And what about the number of glucose molecules produced? So only one glucose molecule. One glucose molecule. Now what about the number of ATP and NADPH plus consumed? So here I'm taking, what about the number of ATP consumed here? 12 molecules of ATP consumed. So this one is a endergonic reaction, energy consuming reaction. 12 molecules of ATP consumed. That is a first reaction of a reduction phase. First reaction of a reduction phase. Okay. So here, how many CO2? 6 CO2. What is the ratio between these two? 1:2. Remember that one. That is very, very important. Next, here 12 molecules of NADPH plus consumed. That is a second reaction of a reduction phase, reductive phosphorylation. So this is also majorly here energetics. I don't want to discuss phosphorylation like that. Energetics means how many ATP consumed, NADPH plus consumed. So this is also endergonic reaction. Endergonic reaction, energy consuming reaction. Right? Next. During regeneration phase, this one is regeneration phase. I will give you separately, don't worry. Here, 6 molecules of ATP consumed. So this is also endergonic reaction, energy consuming reaction. Right? So this one is first reaction. During first reaction of reduction phase. Okay. And this one, second reaction of a reduction phase. So during reduction phase, both ATP and NADPH plus both are consumed. ATP consumed, NADPH plus also consumed. And what about the 6 ATP during regeneration phase? During regeneration phase. Okay, so now ratio between among all these things. What about the number of CO2 molecules? 6 CO2 molecules are wait. So in this case, CO2 molecules versus ATP, NADPH, H plus, and number of glucose molecules produced. So here 6 is to come back. So here 6 ATP molecules, here 12 ATP. total 18 ATP. 2:1 ratio. Okay, so ATP consuming points 2 and NADPH consuming point only 1. That is also very, very important. I will write over the board. So what about the number of ATP? 12 plus 6, 18 ATP molecules. NADPH, 12. Number of glucose molecules, 1. Okay, right? And separately they will ask you, for example, only one CO2. How many ATP consumed? How many NADPH consumed? Okay, so if we prepare ratio out of these three things, leave it out of these three only. So definitely 1 CO2, 3 ATP, and 2 NADPH. Right? Yeah, exactly. Right. So now number of NADPH consuming points, utilizing points. How many points? Consuming points? Only 1. 1 only. Next, ATP consuming or utilizing points. How many? 2. 2 only. 1 only, 2 only. Right? So to reduce 6 CO2 into 1 glucose molecule, that much assimilatory power is required. This assimilatory power is generally coming from, here I'm taking non-cyclic electron transport system, Z scheme. This is a Z scheme. Z scheme. So if 12 H2O molecules photolized, this is part of a light reaction. Okay, so 12 H2O photolized. What about the number of NADH available? 12 molecules of NADPH, H plus, and ATP molecules, 24 ATP molecules available. So out of 12 molecules of NADH, 12 consumed here. And out of 24, how many consumed? 18 only. So 24 minus 18, surplus. They are retained there. They are present in the stroma. How many? 6 are surplus. More than required. Okay, so that's about energetics of C3 cycle. That depends on Z scheme. Usually 99% C3 cycle have to depend on Z scheme. What about a cyclic electron transport system? Additional source only, that is not the main source. So Z scheme is the main source. So I think now you got why do we should write 12 H2O molecules in oxygenic photosynthesis to produce required amount of NADPH plus and ATP molecules. Here ATP surplus, but to produce 12, here how many NADH required? 12 required. Compulsory photolysis of 12 is mandatory, but don't decide number of H2O molecules required on the base of ATP molecules, but decide a number of H2O molecules on the base of number of NADH required for C3 cycle, right? So that is about energetics of C3 cycle. So this is the only biosynthetic pathway by means of which all autotrophs, particularly photoautotrophs, are able to, including bacteria, cyanobacteria, membranes, able to reduce C of CO2 into carbohydrate.